Hi, please call me Silver Fox with Mental Solutions. I have a severe mental condition and I wish to help people who have a mental condition and family and friends of people who do have a mental condition. What we're going to do is work on some unimaginable positive possibilities through changing our perspectives like I had said. We're also going to train our mind, body, and spirit through martial arts. So we're going to be practicing martial arts. Now, we're also going to do meditations and affirmations to work on ourselves, and it's helpful to work on ourselves each and every day. It's important to meditate each day, and once I get it together, we're going to do the martial arts along with the meditations, and I will talk each day to try to help you, give you new insights on how to look at things each day, as well as I'm going to tell you my life story, hopefully now, so you can identify. I'm just going to share a little bit so you can identify with the fact that I do have a mental condition that's very serious, and that some unbelievable things has happened to me in my life because of some of the things that I learned, and I just wish to share that with you guys. Now, starting out, I want you to realize that a mental illness is a very serious condition. It's life-threatening. It can kill you. I'm told there are like 30,000 suicides a year. That's way too many suicides and a lot of homicides. But thing is you don't got to go down that road. I'm going to try to help you not go down that road, okay? And when you ever think that you're sick, at any time you feel like you're not right and you need help, you seek help immediately. Call 911 if you got to. Have them come get you, and you go get treatment immediately. If you realize that you're struggling and things are not making sense and you're having a hard time in any kind of way, or you're severely depressed and you're thinking about harming yourself or others, call 911. That's a signal. You got to get help right then. Now, when I was a young kid, I had experienced problems when I was younger, and life can be very difficult and very hard for people who have a mental condition. Life is not the same as it is for other people. If you've been to a doctor and they've told you that you have a mental condition, and maybe you've been to more than one, then maybe you do. You know, I'm not a doctor, but when I was young and I started going to doctors, I didn't believe that I had a mental condition, but I found out I did. I just kept having to go, and then finally I figured it out. Because nobody wants a mental condition, nobody. But if you've got one, it makes life very difficult. And when you have a mental condition, sometimes you go through what's called a crisis. And you may go through many crises like I have. But you need to know that no matter how bad it is or how difficult things are for you, that you can survive a mental condition. And this is why I'm here doing this. I wish to help you and work with you together and try and survive this mental condition, because there's way too many people dying from it. Thank you. It is very possible that you've been through some very unbelievable experiences that have been so bad you can't even talk about. I understand that. But the thing is hang in there. Just hang on. All right. I recommend, if you've been told you have a serious illness, I recommend going to a doctor and taking medication as they prescribe and not quitting it. Just keep hanging in there. If the medicine's not working the way it is, just go back to the doctor, tell them this is not working, I need something else. But keep hanging in there. Don't give up. Never, ever, ever give up. You can't give up on yourself. All right, because there are ways to get over this. I know it can look so bad sometimes that you don't see a way out. You don't see how it's possible to survive. You don't see how you can make ends meet. You don't see how life can be good and wonderful and joy. You don't see that. But trust me, just hang in there, grab my hand, let's walk down through here and see if we can't make things better for you. I want to teach ways to be happy, ways to have joy in the midst of a terrible, terrible crisis and situation, ways to survive it and get through it, walk through it and find ways to be happy, things that you can do in your life, new ways of thinking, new things to say and do, and just a whole new way to think, so that by changing the way that we think and the things that we say and do, we actually can change our environment. We can change our life and what happens to us in our life by using our inner abilities and powers that we've been given. We can actually make miracles and magic happen in our life. And this is what I want to teach, is how to bring about magic. Magic is like the ability to change your situation to be something more wonderful than you ever imagined it could be. And this is where we're headed. If we walk together, we can walk into a better life if we put our heart and soul into doing new things and thinking in new ways and deciding we want a different life. It's a decision. We have to decide we want something better, and we'll work together to accomplish that. I'm not promising everything is going to be always the best, way ever, and that you're not going to go through difficult times, because that's not true. But the thing is when you do go through the difficult times, you can make it through. You can become a stronger person. I'll teach you how to be stronger so you can survive these things and make it through till you get to the better times, so that you can have good times in your life, because you deserve it. You deserve to have good times in your life just as much as anybody else. I know that a lot of people out here are suffering from real bad experiences, okay? And I want to help you create your own support circle of friends and family that actually love you and care for you, and teach you how to interact with them so that you have good relationships, because this is going to be a foundation to a new life, and a good life is to have a good firm foundation. Now if you don't have any family, you can create friends that are as good as having family. It all has to do with how you treat them, how you interact with them. That's very important. I'm going to teach new ways of doing things, ways of thinking, so that you're able to have a better experiences in your relationships. And that in itself will give you a much better life. I want to explain that there are a lot of different types of mental illness, and people have different things they have to deal with. One person may have a set of problems they deal with, and another person may have mental illness and have a completely different set of problems to deal with. Now, the doctors generally diagnose you, which doesn't mean that you're bad or that, you're not, it doesn't diminish you in any kind of way, no matter what you've been diagnosed as. I've had several diagnoses. I have several different diagnoses. Some people can have more than one diagnosis. Like some people may just have depression. Some people may have depression and manic depression. Manic is when you're up and your mind races and things go real fast and you can't focus. I have the manic depression. I also have schizophrenia, which sometimes I can lose touch with reality. I can sometimes get real paranoid. I have paranoid schizophrenia. I'm doing really well right now, but that changes from time to time. Sometimes I do really well, and then sometimes I have to go through more of a difficult period. I'm also diagnosed as a drug addict. I as well have had anger problems. I've had serious depressions where I put guns in my mouth, cocked it, pulled on the trigger, and the gun clicked, and the knock came at the door, and someone saved my life. I have post-traumatic stress syndrome because of things that happened to me earlier in my life. I used to have bad dreams and nightmares and things, but I've worked through a lot of that. I don't have that so much now as I used to when I was younger. I'm obsessive and compulsive about things that make me feel good, so I have problems with that. So I have a lot of things that I have to deal with, but I do pretty good for someone that's as sick as I am. But I try to work on myself all the time so that I'm not so sick, because I don't like to be sick. No one really does, you know. And you have to understand mental illness is a brain disorder. It's like, you know, if someone has a heart condition, you know, it's not their fault. Well, mental illness is not our fault if we have it. It's just a condition that usually is passed down through families sometimes. Sometimes it runs from family to family. And in my case, my grandmother and my grandfather had it. And, you know, it kind of, I think my dad probably had a little bit of it, my brother maybe. But, you know, it can be passed down through families. I would like to talk a little bit about my childhood. When I was young, my dad, he owned his own business, an encyclopedia business, and he was a person that was full of anger. He was angry a lot of times, but then he was the most beautifulest man you ever meet in your life, and he was the most loving and kindest person in the world, and everybody loved him. He had his own encyclopedia business. He used to sell encyclopedias in Ocean View, which is in Norfolk, Virginia, and it's an area where a lot of sailors live at that work for the Navy, because it has one of the biggest Navy bases in the world. So when I was young, my dad would hire the guys that came over from Vietnam, and they would go out and sell they'd go out and sell encyclopedias, and a lot of times I would ride with them. And I love my dad with all my heart, but the thing is he would get mad and beat us really bad. Sometimes he would put us in the backyard with a Doberman Pinscher, which is a dog, a guard dog, and have him attack us because he wanted us to be tough. He wanted us to be tougher, so he would have the dog attack us when we were like 5 years old, and we would scream and cry, me and my brother trying to get over the fence as the dog would bite us. He would have us put boxing gloves on when we were like 5 years old and punch each other until we cried. We got a lot of beatings with a belt, but he was a very loving man as well. My mom, she was also, you know, kind of mean when we were young. She was very, I guess, authoritative and very, you know, real strict discipline, and sometimes that's not the best way to be for kids, I think, you know. That's just not the best way to be. But anyway, so my father died when I was 10 years old. He died of a massive heart attack. When he did die, we had moved from Ocean View into Virginia Beach, which was a real nice neighborhood. We became very wealthy in a very short period of time. We had a real fancy house on a lake. We had real nice things. We were blessed. And then my dad died. And that was a very traumatic experience for me, you know, when he died. It just was just unbelievable. It killed me inside. And I would cry many a nights, you know, for years and years and years. I would cry at nighttime in my room by myself, you know, full of pain and hurt. And I guess before my teens, for one period of a year, I was sexually molested for a year. I was sexually molested in the basement of a post office a few different times by someone that worked at the post office department. And he molested me for a period of a year, many different times. And the thing is I was looking for a father figure, someone that, could show me, older man's kind of love. And what I got was something that kind of screwed me up really bad for the rest of my life. That's the kind of thing. It's hard. You can work through it, but it never leaves you. You always have that with you. But I'm talking about it because this happens to men, and this is kind of a subject that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and I understand. But I just want you to know that you've experienced it. There's quite a bit of guilt and shame that comes from an experience like that. And the things you need to know about it right off the bat is it's not your fault. That's number one. No matter how it happened, it was not your fault. And, if this has happened to you, we'll try to work through this together down the road. But right now, just try to, just hang in there so we can talk about creating some positive support before you ever do work on something like that. You need a lot of support, and you need to be in a good state of mind before you start going into looking at things like that. But I just want you to know that it makes you feel very shameful, very much guilt. It makes you feel nasty inside, and it messes your mind up when it comes to sex. It just does, and those are the consequences of someone doing that to somebody. All right, there are consequences for that kind of action done on somebody. That is why it is not correct. It is wrong. And if it happened to you, it is not your fault. Okay? But you can survive this. This you can survive. If I can survive it, you can survive it. Trust me. We'll get through it together. Now, when I was 15 years old, don't ever do this. I recommend don't ever do this. I'm trying to help you not do this. But what happened to me was I was full of so much pain and hurt and anger. I cut my wrist 20 times, and I kicked out all the windows in the front of my mom's house because I was in martial arts when I was young. And I ended up in the emergency room. They gave me 20 stitches in my arms, and they sent me to my first psychiatric hospital when I was 15 years old. My veins were hanging out of my arms, and I still have scars because of it. I thought I was going to die. I didn't want to be alive no more because of all the pain and the hurt that I had experienced from my childhood. Now, after that, I still had problems in school. I had problems with people. I just wasn't happy. I was miserable, just miserable all the time. I was going in and out of psychiatric hospitals. I started getting involved in doing drugs. I was also doing martial arts, but I spent a lot of time for a short period of time doing quite a bit of martial arts, which did help me and make me a tougher person. And that's what we're going to work on, doing martial arts, not to hurt each other, but to make us tougher to deal with this illness that we're dealing with. After that, I was able to graduate high school. I ended up getting involved with a girl, and getting a job selling what's called rainbow vacuum cleaners. And at that time, I was able to sell a lot of vacuum cleaners some months. Other months I didn't sell anything, but I did that for 4 or 5 years. But I loved doing it. I loved selling them. The most rainbows I sold at that time was 14 in 1 month, which I thought was excellent. But I know some people that sold like 30 or 34 of them or whatever. But that's a lot to sell, when you're selling them at between $800 and $1,000 a piece, But I enjoyed doing that. Then I started getting involved in heavier drugs like cocaine and crack and stuff, and it took over my life. And we were selling drugs and vacuum cleaners, and I started getting really sick psychologically as well. And then I started going in state hospitals, which are a lot different than a regular hospital. They generally are for more serious illnesses, people that have very serious illnesses. And I guess I'll share a few experiences of that with you. I was so sick that I thought that I had gone earlier when I was raised. I went to a couple Christian schools, and I learned a lot about the Bible. My mom took us to church a lot, and I had some real weird ideas in my head, I guess, about things that I had learned or acquired some kind of way. And I thought that I was getting the mark of the beast put on me by this hospital. So these police officers had picked me up and took me to this hospital. When I seen it was a 200-year-old building, they got me out of the police car, and they came around the back of the police car to come to get me, and I turned around and kicked them in between the legs and dropped them to the ground. Then they grabbed me, and then they took me up to the second or third floor and strapped me to a bed. And they would try to feed me, and I would spit at them and try to bite them and try to throw my fork at them. And so they kept me locked up to the bed for 3 days and 3 nights. And I mean, 3 million nights is what I mean. That was crazy. And then I was chained to a bed 3 different times because I was very sick. And I thought they were trying to give me the mark of the beast to send me for hell forever and ever and ever. I was all messed up in my mind. I was just, I didn't know what was going on. So one time, I guess I was on the second floor, third floor. No, I was on the second floor, I guess. And so there was only 2 ways out of there. One was down a corridor of steps, and then one way was through the elevator. And you had to have a key for either one of them. Well, this nurse sticks a key in the elevator and turns it, opens the door. I grabbed her and threw her out of the way and jumped on the elevator and started pushing buttons. And the door opened. I said, everybody was standing around. It was on the 3rd floor. And I said, where the hell is the front door? They said, you're on the 3rd floor. I said, oh shit. So I started fighting with the staff, and they locked me to a bed again. Then another time, I wanted to go down, they let me go down to breakfast, so I went down the corridor, and right at the end of the corridor was a front door. I went running right out that front door. I run across the field where there was a prison. I could have been shot. And the barbed wire cut my shirt off, and I went right past the prison where they could have shot me in the field. They could do it. I ran out into the interstate. I'm standing in the interstate, and I'm hitchhiking, and nobody will pick me up. My shirt's half torn on me. Then I see a tractor and trailer coming right towards me. So I get out on Interstate 81, get out in the middle of the interstate, and I'm standing in there trying to wave, trying to get them to stop. And they was not going to stop, but I didn't know that. I thought if I stayed there, they would stop. And I didn't know this, but there was a police car that pulled up on the other side, and the man ran across the median. He ran and grabbed me, and we fell back, and as we fell back, I felt the wind of that truck go over me. And I looked up at him. He had a tear in his eye, and he saved my life, and he knew he saved my life, and I knew he saved my life too. And the thing is with drugs and with mental illness, you find yourself in a lot of dangerous situations, especially dealing drugs or whatever it is, you find yourself doing. You find yourself to where you can get killed at any time because of the lifestyle that you live. So I don't condone dealing drugs, and I do not condone, that lifestyle. But if you're caught up in drugs, then please hang in there too. Please hang in there. Now I know if you're on drugs, it's not easy to stop doing that. It's not, but I tell you what, it's best not to do drugs, but if you're going to do drugs, then still listen to me, and we'll try to work through that too, okay? I know that sounds crazy, but the drugs is not what you want, but I understand it, okay? And or drinking, but I will say this, if you get to a point, and you're going to, hopefully I pray you get to a point to where you'll say, this is not what I want no more. You got to get to that point. When you get to that point, okay, then we can do some serious work on you. But if you're using drugs or drinking heavy and have a problem with it, then you're going to have a hard time having a good life. I'm just going to tell you. That's all. Okay, now let me talk about one of the greatest periods of my life. This lady came into my life, and I had a child. And I thought, oh no, I don't know if I can do this or not. But let me tell you what. I was the main caregiver to my son, and I raised him. And I tell you, that was the best experience of my life. And when he was little, it was like we were like best friends. From the time he was a baby till the time he left. His mom took him to another state when he turned 7. But for 7 years, I changed most of the diapers. I spent the days and nights with him. We played day and night. It was the greatest time of my life. I was also able. It took me 10 years because I have a hard time reading and learning through reading. But I pursued becoming a licensed massage therapist. I'm a licensed massage therapist now, and it's been a blessing to me. I used to take my son out and do massages with my son and just ask him could he sit there while I did it. And they had no problem with it, and my son still to this day remembers me taking him out to do that. And it was the most greatest time I've ever had. I was able to work at a place that was called a drop-in center for 1 year. They let me work there. That's where people that had mental illness could come and eat. We had a TV room, we had a movie room, we had computers for people to work on. I worked there for a year, and I loved all the people, and the homeless people would come in there after a while. I would go collect like clothing from churches to bring to them, and it was so wonderful to help them. This is my dream, is to have my own clubhouse that I can help people just like myself who have a mental condition be able to come and eat and spend time together and have my own support groups. And this is my dreams. But right now I'm working on helping people that are watching this. But those were some of the greatest times of my life. Now, after a year, eventually the drop-in, it did close down. But there was a lady that would go to the drop-in, and for some reason, I took her off the streets, and she's been with me now 5 years. She was homeless for 3 years. She's been with me 5 years. I helped her get her disability. I helped her, she had a goiter in her neck the size of a baseball that was actually killing her. She was going in and out of the emergency room all the time. I was taking her for a heart condition. We had the goiter removed out of her neck, and now for like 2 years she hasn't had any problems. I take care of her. We get along perfect. It's been one of the most wonderful things I've ever done, was taking her off the streets and knowing that I saved her life. And recently I was able to help a man. He had a very serious heart condition. I just helped take him to the doctors until he got a pacemaker put in his heart at another neighborhood that I lived at, and he's doing good now. And I saved his life. And when you start doing things like saving people's lives, your life changes tremendously, because that brings about great joy when you're able to save somebody's life. Okay, now look, we're going to have to wrap this up this time, but I appreciate you watching. I hope you've learned some things. I hope that you'll decide to watch this if you think this is something for you. This may not be for everybody, and please watch this at your own risk, because mental illness is a very dangerous condition. If you find that watching these programs, it's hurting you in any way, stop watching them. But if you find that it's helping you, then keep watching them. That's how you know whether something's good for you or not. But I intend for this to harm no one and help everyone. That's my intentions. But I've enjoyed spending time with you. Hang in there till next time. Now, I do have a mental condition, so I may not be able to do this every single day, but as often as I'm able to film, I'm going to film and write things on the mental solutions our Silver Fox Mental Solution. As much as I can write, much as I can write or film, I'm going to do. But if there's a lapse in time, please don't get upset at me, because I do have a mental condition. But for now, thank you for watching. You have a wonderful day. Bless you, and I'll see you next time. Silver Fox, and this is out. Mental